What is going on, everybody? Jumbo Thick here, back with a Q&A session. This time, this will be Q&A number 7, and we are celebrating because the channel has hit over 10,000 subscribers, a milestone in the cult of Thick, as it was. Of course, I am very grateful to you guys for both just sticking with me as long as you have, and all of those that have supported me over the past couple years now. I never sought out to make this a big, sprawling channel, and it has developed into something that I wasn't suspecting, and I'm very grateful to all of you guys for it. So in that vein, I put out another Q&A session for you guys, and let's just dive right into it. And you guys got to ask me anything you wanted to. It could be personal, it could be private, wink wink. It could be lore, it could be video games, anything really. And let's start at the top of the comment section. I should be able to hit pretty much all of these. So, my first question comes from Frog Vapor. Thank you for posting a comment, Mr. Frog Vapor. You've been a part of almost every Q&A session, I believe, so definitely appreciate you. So his first question is, would you rather, every time you watch a movie, you have to watch the last 20 minutes first and then the rest of the movie plays out like normal, or you never get to see the last 20 minutes of any movie ever? That is such a philosophical question, Frog Vapor. And if I had to pick between the two, I would say that I would probably I would like to see the last 20 minutes and then see the rest of the movie because I have to see the whole thing, and that actually might make it better. Some movies I feel like might actually be a little more interesting if they did exactly what you said. So yeah, I'll go with that one. That is the answer to our first question. And our next question comes from Mad Wolf 24. In terms of lore, which is your favorite Warhammer race and why? So, I have a very, very soft spot in my heart for, as anyone could guess by now, the Skaven. They are probably my favorite race of all time in Warhammer, mostly because of how unique they are as a race in any fantasy genre. They are an extremely unique race that you will not find anywhere outside of Warhammer, which really drew me toward them in the first place. Then there's the whole idea of them being just this shadowy, cowardly kind of species, but at the same time they're extremely powerful and potent and just evil to the core. So I don't know why I'm drawn to a lot of the more evil races, for sure. I don't know what that says about me as a person, but they're definitely my favorite just because of those few things that make them so unique. And also because of the way they talk. It's just, it's fantastic. Yes, yes, you know? So, speak sweet, much, says man thing. Yeah, I'm rambling at this point. So let's move on to the next question. Thank you. Very good question. This one is from Watson Investigations. I know who you are, by the way. How late do you stay up? Why haven't you added a funny friend to your channel? Sorry, Smooth, but you're rough. Which race do you enjoy the least? So there's several questions there. I know this guy is a bit of a jokester. So how late do I stay up? I stay up extremely late, mostly because that's the only way I get to do YouTube, is if I stay up to ungodly hours and then wake up early the next day. I'm in a perpetual state of no sleep, and it is taxing, I will not lie. Which race do I enjoy the least? My least favorite race is probably not a mystery to anybody if they've watched some of my previous Q&As. I don't like greenskins. I never have. I don't. They have a spot in the lore and everything else, and they fill a niche, but I just don't like them. I don't like greenskins. I think that the majority of the Warhammer world is a very grimdark, very serious kind of world, and that's kind of what drawn me to it in the first place. And then the goblins are just like happy fun times. Lots of jokes, lots of like poop montages, and just I mean, it's kind of funny, I'm not gonna lie. Some of it is funny, but at the same time, they're just, out of all of the races, that's definitely my least favorite by far. And I know that's probably sacrilege to some people, because I have several green skin comments in here, and we'll be going over those regardless of how I like them or not. Speaking of greenskins, Frog Vapor back again. Who's luckier? Grom's, I want to say that's probably Noblar, or Tretch Craventail. Would you rather sit next to Grom on a plane or Azhag? Well, let's answer the first question, because I prefer, I think I've got a good grasp on this one. So Grom is extremely hungry. He has, I believe the orcs refer to it as the hunger pains from eating a troll that was not quite dead. So, which is how we got to such a prestigious size. Once again, funny, but not my favorite, regardless. So yes, he is extremely hungry, almost like an ogre, really. And then you have Tretch. Now, here's the thing. Tretch has, like, mechanics built into his character, built around his luck. So, I feel out of the two, if we're going by, even lore-wise, honestly, up until the end times, of course, Tretch is definitely far, far luckier than Grom's Noblar, by far. Would you rather sit next to Grom on a plane or Azhag? Let's see here. They're both big. They're both about the same size. Actually, Grom might be a little bigger. Azhag's crazy as all get out, though. I don't know. They're both terrible choices, man. Terrible choices. I don't like greenskins. Asking me greenskin questions. I don't know. I guess Azhag, maybe. He is insane, though. I mean, I guess I could pretend to be. I could pretend to be, you know, his Dark Lord and Savior, talking to him through the Crown of Domination, Nagash. I could just pretend to be him and maybe talk him into jumping out of the plane, and then I'll have extra space. So there is that. So I'm gonna go with Azhag. My next question comes from MadWookie98. What's going on, MadWookie? I appreciate you. You comment also on the Warhammer fantasy roleplay I do, and I love it. If I could give you a wink right now and like a thumbs up, if you could see it, I'd be doing it. Power on, MadWookie98. So his question is, if you existed in the Warhammer world, what race would you be a part of, and why? Also, congrats on the 10K. I appreciate you, MadWookie. Like I said, you're awesome. What race would it be a part of? See, now, this is different from what race I like as a person. If I had to live in Warhammer, first off, it would suck. The Warhammer world is awful. There is no race in Warhammer that has, like, an awesome time. The one that's closest to Serenity, are the High Elves. In Ulthuan specifically. Especially on the inner side of the Anuli Mountains? I can't remember the mountain range. There's a mountain range that separates like the outer sphere to the inner sphere of the island itself. If you're on the inner sphere, it's actually not so bad. So if I had to be, I would be part of the High Elves. Not because I like High Elves, because I don't much care for them that much at all. But yeah, I would definitely be part of the Azure, just because it would be the most nice thing that could happen to me. There's not as many threats outside of, Dark Elf raiding parties and things of that sort. And, of course, all the hideous monsters that sometimes crawl out of the vortex or are just, drawn to it. But besides that, even the poorest elf is, like, at least middle-class human. So in that retrospect, you could live a somewhat comfortable life in Ulthuan as a high elf, and it would be pretty awesome, actually. Now, my second pick, I'm just going to give you 2 picks because I think I need to, would be the Empire. It is the only other place to live in Warhammer where you might have a somewhat normal life depending on where in the Empire you lived at. So it's a toss-up between the two of them, honestly. There's pros and cons of both. Pro for living in the Empire, don't have to be an elf, because I don't really like elves. But the con is I might, Skaven might crawl from the sewers and kill me. Or I might get stabbed in an alleyway. But then again, some of those things can happen in Ulthuan. Not the Skaven or the stabbed in the alley. Well, stabbed in the alleyway does happen a lot. So, regardless, one of those two. I can't decide. So, what are your guys' favorite ones? I'm curious now. This is interesting. With that, let's move on to our next question. This comes from Roman Woolner. If you had to pick between Queek Headtaker and Wulfric the Wanderer, who would win in your opinion? Okay, that's a interesting one. Oh, and then he has a second question, which I'll read afterwards. So, the first question. Queek or Wulfric? See, now that is... I love Queek Headtaker. He's one of my favorite characters, period, in Warhammer. He's more complex than what it seems like. At the same time, Wulfric is also one of my top tier favorite characters. And he wasn't it originally. Like, when I originally read about him in the army books and things like that, I was kind of, he's a chaos, champion. But when you read his novel, oh my god. There's so much depth to his character, and man, it makes you root for him, even though he's an evil bastard. So, like most of the Norskins are. But between the two, if they both had a fight, as much as I'd want to give it to Queek, I'd give it to Wulfric. The man never lost a fight up until the end times. Never lost a fight. Queek lost fights. He did. He lost several fights. He always recovered and hurried away. But Wulfric never lost a challenge. He was the champion of, like, Chaos Undivided. Not just any particular god. He was the champion of them all. He was just their duelist. He was their go-to guy when they wanted something done and they really wanted it done. They tortured Wulfric until he did it. So there's that. He's killed all kinds of things. And while Queek has done his fair share, Queek is still a very young rat. Whereas Wulfric is old. Because we all know the Chaos Gods will keep their champions alive for indefinitely. Torturing them basically by not allowing them to die and pass on. So, I would give it to Wulfric, hands down. The only way he died was by the hands of Voltan, who had a fragment of Sigmar inside of him, and that's why he died. So, if that wouldn't happen, and it was the end times. The end times, if you put the end times in a box and just read that and didn't know anything about Warhammer Fantasy, it's a decent novel. They're decent novel series, but man, the way Games Workshop just took a giant dump on Warhammer Fantasy was just so disappointing. There's so many threads. It's bad. I'm not getting into it. I'm moving on. I need to stop. So his second question is, if there was ever a Warhammer Fantasy movie, where do you think it should take place or start? First off, there never will be one. But if there ever was, because I'm all for it, it'll never happen because I want it to happen. There's so many settings that deserve some kind of mainstream media, movie, even a TV show, anything, Netflix special, for God's sakes, all of it. There's so many settings like that deserve it and just will never get it. Warhammer Fantasy, Warhammer 40k even, never going to get a damn movie. There's been talks for eternity. It's never going to happen. Watch it happen the day after I post this video. Regardless. Fantasy movie, if they were going to do one, first off, you have to give me movie type. Like, are we doing traditional Lord of the Rings style epic journey? Are we doing horror? Are we doing like Indiana Jones, exploration? Are we doing... I mean, there's so many different genres that fit into Warhammer Fantasy that it would depend on the genre of the movie. If we were doing horror, you got to go to Sylvania. I mean, it's perfect. Sylvania, or do me a very interesting horror take in Nagarond, the Dark Elves. Give me an interesting one in Norska, having to travel in the Chaos Waste or something insane like that. If we're doing adventure, if we're doing just straight up adventure, give me Lustria. Give me the Empire. Give me Bretonia. Hell, give me the Underway. If we're doing like exploration movies, I would love to see the Far East. It would be awesome, and it'd be something unique. Like I said, this is all wishful thinking. But the Land of the Tomb Kings, that Raider of the Lost Ark kind of stuff. There's so many options. I mean, countless options, and I couldn't just pick one. I'd be interested to hear what you would do, Mr. Woolner. I want to know. My next question comes from one Garrett Hatch, I believe that's how you say it. He asks, would you consider playing Warhammer 40k Dawn of War for the channel? Okay, so I am not as well versed in 40k as I am Warhammer Fantasy. I'm really into fantasy, if you can't tell. But I wouldn't be opposed, but I've never played it before, so it'd be kind of a blind thing. I don't know. If people have enough interest, I'll do it. if there's enough interest behind it. But I might suck really bad. But I'd give it a shot, honestly, if there is enough interest. But there would have to be enough interest. That's going to be it, because I don't have any experience with it. I kind of know, I know enough about the base story in 40k to understand what's going on. I understand the majority of the different races and most of the timeline, in fact, including the Horus Heresy. But I'm not as well versed and as in depth as I am in fantasy, so I don't feel as confident talking about 40k or even Age of Sigmar yet. I still feel like there's more fantasy I need to draw out of me before I move on to Sigmar, so I'm still kind of held back in between the two. But as far as playing Dawn of War, it's a question mark. It's a maybe. So sorry about that. Your question's not going to be completely answered. But my next question is from Mr. Nick Swinson. Are you going to start a Patreon, and will you be adding more players to your Warhammer RPG? So, and then there was also a reply to that from Adam the Spaghetti Fanatic, which is a fantastic name, I might add. And if I do open a Patreon, can you vote on games? So, let me answer both of these questions outright. I'm like a part-time YouTuber. I'm not even full-time, guys. I'm not. It might seem like it, but I'm not. I have like potato internet. It's bad. I live in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I live in the middle of nowhere compared to the vast majority of the US. And I feel like I couldn't deliver if I started a Patreon for you guys. I don't feel like I have the time to deliver anything substantial to you guys. And that is the reason why I haven't started a Patreon. That is the only reason why, because I don't feel like I have anything extra I can give to you as of yet. Now, if any more time opens up in my life, I might. But for now, it's not going to happen. Maybe someday. And if I ever do, I will, of course, make an announcement. I will let it be known that I'm starting a Patreon, and of course there will be some kind of benefits associated with it. But for now, I can't do it, guys. I can't. It's just too much on my plate. As far as adding players to my Warhammer RPG, I had a special guest come on recently. I am only adding people that I know from real life, guys. So I apologize if anybody wants to join. I just don't. I know these guys well enough that I feel comfortable DMing for them. Maybe one day, if, like, for instance, I ever open up a Patreon, I might do a game for just fans and things like that. But as of right now, this is the only one I'm running. So I do apologize for that, but that's just kind of what I am personally comfortable with. So that's kind of my feelings on that. But awesome question, Nick, and you've been in several of my Q&As, and I do appreciate you commenting and, of course, watching the Q&As, period, because a lot of people don't. But thank you very much. And my next question comes from, I am going to butcher this name, Jurian Kuijber? I can't say it. I'm sorry. You know who you are. What are some of the sizes of armies in the big wars? Lore-wise, so the Warhammer lore stuff, of course. What are some of the sizes of the major armies? Well, they never give specifics, and it would depend on the war. The first war, the war after the warp gates opened up, you're talking about the entire world at war. So imagine the biggest armies possible, and then multiply it by like 3 or 4, and then you've got the size of what the battles were like. They were insane. Now, if we move into like Sigmar's time, he wouldn't be able to rally enough people even then that the current empire and some of the other neighboring nations could now, because of there being more people. But you never get specifics. Oddly, that's kind of a writing trope to begin with, because this isn't real history. And for that reason, they don't ever announce, oh, there were 10,000 men in this battle. Or, hey, there were 100,000 people that fought to the death in the Karazankor during the Sundering. No, it's never like that. All they do is give vague details about how many dwarves died here, how many elves died here, how many humans showed up, how many orcs showed up. But it's always assumed that most of the major incursions, you could expect massive armies on a very grand scale. And especially once you get closer to the modern times, if you're looking at like the empires of men, with the exception of the Hekara. So there's always exceptions. And there's just so much. That's such a very specific question, man. And I feel like I am letting you down because there is no information. It doesn't exist. And I don't want to bullshit you. I don't want to just throw some numbers out there because I don't know. Because no one knows. Because it's left ambiguous on purpose. So just think big. If you're trying to imagine it, first off, it depends on the war. It does depend on the war. Second off, think of just massive numbers, because it's almost like most of the battles in Warhammer are almost to the scale of something like you would see in the Lord of the Rings. Like almost all of the battles are just insanely huge, and there's just death and destruction and misery everywhere, because that's Warhammer, and that's what we love, and that's why we come back to it over and over again. So unfortunately, sorry, Mr. Jurian, or Miss Jurian, I don't know. Your name's ambiguous like that. I don't know, and I'm sorry I couldn't answer your question. But let's move on to a question I can answer. An Atomic Spark. Are you planning on ending the Rise of the Forsaken campaign? If so, will there be another chapter/episode? Said it before, but your storytelling and world crafting is simply amazing. Every week I look forward to a new chapter of Rise of the Forsaken. Well, Mr. Atomic, I'll have you know, I don't plan on ending the campaign anytime soon, so you're in luck. if anything, by my calculations from what I have prepared, it depends on if the players get super bored, which they're not. They're very much into it. We're not even halfway through what I have kind of prepared, or what I have envisioned, which it could go even further than that. We are running into the problem now where I believe the rules were not made with a long campaign in mind, and the characters are getting to a level of almost heroic status so early that I don't know what to do with them. It's getting crazy. So we'll see how long this goes. We'll see. I'm going to be ratcheting up the difficulty. But as of this Q&A, I have added a special guest. We'll see if he stays on. We don't know yet. That's why he's a special guest. And I do, of course, it will be announced when the end of the campaign is. It's going to go on for a while if I have anything to say about it, and the guys as well. They enjoy it quite a bit, so not even halfway, Mr. Atomic, not even halfway. So I do, and thank you, of course, for watching Rise of the Forsaken. I put a lot of time into it. It's mostly because I get to play with my friends, and it's one of the few ways I get to actually interact with them. So yeah. So yeah, I appreciate you as a fan, and thank you for watching, man. I do appreciate that. And on to the next question from Petrucci Ibizia. You, my friend, have also been with the channel for a long time, and I would like to say thank you for, sticking with us for as long as you have. Petrucci asks, how is your family doing, mate? I think you might be British. I'm just going to throw it out there. Tell us something more about Age of Sigmar Free Cities update, and what's your stance in it? Would you give Age of Sigmar a shot? So, as far as the family's doing, we're doing okay. I'm scraping by as much as I can. I have a 1.5-year-old. That's why the channel is slowed down as much as it has, guys. I apologize for that. My wife's doing pretty good, and then there's just me. That's it. That's all I've got to. That's all I got on the family front. Doing all right. Getting by. Little kids getting bigger, and it's pretty awesome. But as far as Age of Sigmar, the Free City update does look pretty cool. Like I said, I keep just an eye on Age of Sigmar. I'm not as detailed. I might skim over kind of what's going on currently. And I like the idea that we're getting more of the general populace, the normal people in Age of Sigmar, not the Sigmarines as they are being called. The Sigmarites, basically the Adeptus Astartes of Warhammer Fantasy now, since that's what that is. My stance on Age of Sigmar is I am going to eventually give it a shot. I don't know how long it's going to take for me to get over kind of my stigma, but it's especially now it's starting to interest me. When they first announced it, I was not on board, mostly because I love fantasy so much. But man, it's getting better, and I'm now interested in actually reading some of the novels. And I know once I start reading the novels, I will get into Age of Sigmar, just because that's my personality. So eventually, someday, you might expect some Age of Sigmar stuff from me. But for now, sorry. I'm sticking with my fantasy. So thank you, Mr. Petrucci. I appreciate you commenting, and hopefully I answered your question. And my next question is from Ricard Berglund. Berglund? I'm going to say Berglund. If I mispronounce it, I apologize. I probably will mispronounce everyone's. So, which is your favorite army in Warhammer? Or rank them all? Okay, so if I had to pick a favorite army, I like artillery. I love artillery. Now, here's the difference. I never actually played tabletop, guys. I know that's crazy. I never actually played tabletop. So I know some of the rules just because I've read a lot of the army books. Most of that I skim over for lore stuff. I don't usually look at stats as much unless I'm doing army-specific videos. But most of my, like, oh man, I like this army, comes from Total War. So Total War Warhammer is the majority of my experience with the armies in Warhammer, and I love artillery, and I like lots of numbers. So it's of no surprise that my favorite faction are the Skaven, because they have both. And of course they also have all those very interesting just rat units. I just love them so much. Now I hope they eventually get their full roster in Total War. Right now they're kind of limited. Well, they're not. They have a lot. They have most of their units, but like they're missing the wolf rats. They're missing some units that I wish that they had. That's all I'm going to get into. But yeah, they're definitely my favorite army by far. I don't think I have the time to rank all of the armies, because there's a lot of armies out there. But they are certainly my favorite army, and that's, that was pretty much a no-brainer, honestly. Just from me, because I love the Skaven. So what can I say? And my next question comes from Inquisitor Thomas. How you doing, Inquisitor Thomas? Are the evil races of Warhammer Fantasy a case of nature or nurture? For example, if you took a newly born Chaos Dwarf, Beastman, or Skaven and raised it by humans or dwarfs that legitimately cared for the child, would it grow up to be normal parts of the society it grew up in? So, I think in fantasy, 40k might be a little different, but in fantasy, if it's from birth, if we're talking about from birth, it's a Dawizar, Beastman, or a Skaven. In fantasy, it is nature versus nurture. There is no nurture that can curb what they are. They come into the world tainted, and that's how they're going to leave the world. There's no amount of love you can give to them that will make them not be what they are. Just because fantasy is almost black and white like that. Now, it's a different story when it comes to something mutating, like a man mutating and then still keeping their faculties, because we have several examples of that happening where they're not chaos worshippers, but they were changed by chaotic corruption or influences in their general vicinity, but they never actually fell to chaos. We have examples of that, but there are no examples of a Beastman, a Skaven, or a Dawizar, or anything even similar, being raised by humans or elves or anything like that and being a normal, productive member of society. Never has happened, and I don't think it can. One of the best examples that I can give you, and they allude to this in the newest Vermintide trailer, Vermintide 2, with the what are they called? The Winds of Magic. I forget the name of the DLCs, the newest DLC. There is a story in the Bretonnia anthology that follows a prominent noble that starts off as just essentially a prince of a dukedom and then rises all the way to a Grail Knight. But there is an example of his mother giving birth to a deformed child who is a Gave. It becomes a Beastman. And it is warped by the dark powers. His father couldn't kill it, so he left it out in the woods. The Beastman took it in. Now, this is where the nature versus nurture thing comes in. I do understand that. But here's the big difference. This is a little bit of a spoiler, so if you don't want to hear the spoilers about the pretty old Bretonnia novelizations, you should probably just skip ahead a little bit. But if you're okay with it, there is essentially his father could not kill this baby, even though it was a creature of chaos, and when it was born, killed its mother because it was unnatural and the birthing process was not easy. He couldn't kill it, so he lets it go. So what does it do? It grows up, and even being raised by Beastmen, it shouldn't have been capable of doing what it does, but I think it's just in its nature to do what it does. it grows up, and it isn't just a destructive force. It has intelligence, and it seeks out to kill its father and all related to him. And once it does, it like completes itself, and it's a horrible, it's really messed up. It's a messed up story. And that is the best story I have, the best thing in the lore that I have that relates to your question, and that it is definitely all nature. When these things are born, they are just inherently evil. There's no changing it. They are different, a different breed. And that's that. Now, if you're going for races of men and or like elves that are born in a society that isn't necessarily a physical corruption, because I feel like the Dawis are physically corrupted. But for instance, the Norskins, a lot of them are physically corrupted, but there are certain tribes of them that aren't, and will actually do trade with the Southerners and things like that. Likewise, Dark Elves, they're born just like High Elves. They just live in a really bad society. So if a Dark Elf baby was born and taken in by High Elves as a baby, it would be a High Elf. It wouldn't know any different. So this is a complicated topic. It is. I could probably do an entire video on this one topic. But in my opinion, as of right now, anything born that has physical mutation of that sort is going to be evil. It just is. Just because of the nature of the beast as it was. Now, if it's a human born with like a slight mutation, maybe not. I don't have any examples of that I can think of off the top of my head. Outside of one instance in the Witch Hunter series where there's a little girl that has like I want to say she has a hoof or something like that, and she ends up getting burned alive. It sucks and it's horrible, but yeah. So I think I answered your question, Inquisitor Thomas. I think maybe not. Regardless, thank you for the question. And my next question comes from Adam, the Spaghetti Fanatic. We talked about you earlier, Adam. Thank you for, of course, commenting. Are you ready for the Vermintide? I'm always ready for the Vermintide. I'm part of the tide, baby. Part of it. Chittering, skittering, and chewing on that warp stone and killing my my fellow Skaven. All with the Black Hunger, eating their insides and, you know, hopefully one day appeasing the Great Horned One and becoming one of the Vermin Lords. So there is that. But in all seriousness, I want to say that's my only question. That's it. We're done with the questions, guys. So that is going to be it for our Q&A session today, guys. I'd like to say thank you to all you guys that wrote in comments. I appreciate you guys. I definitely, thanks for all the support, everybody. I can't believe I hit 10,000 subscribers. It's awesome. It's an awesome achievement. I'm very proud. I'm very proud, and I'm proud of our community we have here, because everybody's very, we're not hateful. Some of us are. There are some of you out there that are hateful, but a lot of you are just really, really down-to-earth good people that are just very supportive and understanding. And man, I'm so lucky that I found YouTube when I did and decided to be a content creator. And this has been an awesome feeling. This has been an awesome platform for me to give out ideas and inspiration to others. That's the way I look at it. So thank you guys very much for watching and, of course, supporting me. And this is going to be the end of the Q&A session, guys. This is it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing you guys in future lore videos and future fantasy role plays. I'm always going to be doing some kind of role plays. I think that's going to be a new staple on channel. And if you haven't seen it, you should check out my Rise of the Forsaken roleplay, because it's awesome. If I don't toot my own horn. And of course, lots and lots of Let's Plays, because I love video games. It's a big part of my life, and it's going to be a big part of the channel. So I hope you guys enjoy them. And of course, I have been Jumbo Thick. Thank all of you in the Cult of Thick. And I hope to see you guys soon. Have a good day.